Today, I'm at the Reserve, the Frisco neighborhood that buyers ask me about all the time. So, what makes this area so special? I'm giving you the good, the bad, and the things that you will not see in the listing photos so that you'll know exactly what you're getting into before you fall in love with it. So, let's get into it. Here's the first thing that surprises almost everybody the first time they drive through the Reserve. The Reserve doesn't feel like a mountain town subdivision that just got slapped together to catch a tourist dollars. It feels like a neighborhood, like an actual place where people live full time, raise kids, walk their dogs in the evening, and know their neighbors' names. And honestly, that's pretty rare up here because a lot of Summit County is built around short-term rentals. You'll drive through some neighborhoods in Breckenridge and Silverthorne, and half the driveways will be empty because the owners just live somewhere else. They live out of state and they'll only show up a few weeks a year. The Reserve, it's different. You get a real mix. You've got full-time locals, you've got second homeowners who actually use their place all winter, not just rent it out and forget about it. I had a client last year, I think it was. She told me her husband already had a place in Denver and that they wanted a true vacation home up here, somewhere that they'd actually use every single ski season, not just something that they're going to hand off to a property manager and see twice a year. Well, we walked through the Reserve and she said it was the first neighborhood in Summit County that actually felt like a real neighborhood to her and not a resort. That's the whole vibe here. This is honestly one of my favorite things about this area because a lot of buyers, they come up here assuming that everything up in Summit is going to feel transient. And then they get to the Reserve and it just doesn't. Now, here's the practical one that actually affects your day-to-day life more than people realize before they move here. Location in Summit County isn't like location in a normal suburb because your commute isn't measured in minutes to the grocery store. It's measured in how fast you can get to the ski resorts and how fast you can get on I-70 when a storm rolls in. Now, this is actually where the Reserve does something really smart without even realizing it. Frisco has two exits off I-70 and the Reserve, it sits basically right between both of them. So you've got multiple ways in and out of the neighborhood, which matters way more than people think because once they're stuck behind an accident with only one way home, you really feel that. So from the Reserve, you're like minutes, and I mean like 3 minutes from Safeway and Whole Foods and natural grocers, a quick shot to the marina, and you've got fast access to I-70, whether you're headed to Copper, Vale, Silverthorne, or Dillon, or Keystone, or Denver. I can't even imagine trying to explain to somebody who's never lived here in the winter how much this really matters. So when conditions get bad and you're trying to get, I don't know, your kids to ski practice, or you're just trying to get home to beat a storm, because being centrally located with more than one way in or out isn't just a luxury, it's genuinely a quality of life issue. And honestly, this is the kind of thing that's really hard to appreciate until you've lived it. Knowing which roads to take when Main Street backs up or which back way gets you to the exit faster during a weekend rush. I've lived and sold real estate here long enough to know all of those little patterns, the traffic flow, the shortcuts, and the roads locals use that visitors honestly will never find. So if you actually want to understand the nuances of getting around Frisco before you commit to a location, reach out to me. That's exactly the kind of thing that I love to help buyers with. All right, this next one is something buyers almost never think to ask about until they've already lived through it in a Colorado winter. Sun exposure in Summit County is a bigger deal than people realize until they've lived through a winter in a house that just doesn't get light. Here in Frisco, Mount Royal and Peak 1 sit right there to the south, and because the winter sun angle is so low, those mountains will throw a long shadow over a big chunk of the town, especially in the area south of Main Street. Homes down there can lose direct sunlight a lot earlier in the day through the winter months than you'd expect. The reserve, because of where it sits relative to those peaks, tends to get noticeably better sunlight through the winter. And I know that sounds like it's a small thing until you're actually the one living here in January, wondering why your living room feels like a cave at 2 in the afternoon. Sunlight, it affects your mood. It affects how much snow melts off your driveway without you having to shovel it. It affects your heating bill. It touches almost everything about how a house actually lives day to day. I've walked buyers through homes south of Main Street in the winter that are beautiful, gorgeous finishes, great bones, the whole thing. And then we walk in a comparable property in the reserve, and you can just feel the difference in the room. More light, it just hits differently. It's one of those things that you don't fully appreciate on paper until you just stand in the space, and then you get it. Now, this last one is the one that once buyers experience it, they usually can't imagine going back to anything else. A lot of Frisco living happens pretty close together. Townhomes, condos, duplexes. Lots are stacked pretty tight because land's expensive and buildable ground is limited. And there's nothing wrong with that. Plenty of my clients want exactly that kind of low maintenance lifestyle. But if you're actually looking for a bit of breathing room, a yard where your dog can run in, some separation from your neighbor's window, the reserve, it delivers that in a way a lot of Frisco neighborhoods don't. The lots here are typically bigger. The spacing between homes is more generous. It gives the whole neighborhood a calmer, more private feel. I had a buyer tell me once, and I think about this all the time. He said, I didn't realize how much I needed space until I had it. He'd been living in a townhome in the downtown core of Breck for, I don't know, 2 seasons, great location, but he could hear his neighbor's TV through the wall. He moved into the reserve, and the first thing that he told me was after closing, he said, it finally felt like I had my own place. Okay, so if you've been on the fence about whether extra space and privacy is worth it to you, this might be the one thing that pushes you over. One other thing, the Frisco Rec Path winds right through this neighborhood. All right, before we get into the cons, because there are some real ones, I just want you to know that every video that I make is to give you the same information that I'd give to a friend who'd called me up and said, hey, I'm thinking of buying up here. What do I need to know? So if something I say helps you make a better decision, then this video did its job, whether you call me or not. But here's the thing, the stuff that actually matters the most, like the road noise that you can't hear on a listing photo, or which listings are about to hit before they go public, whether it's a specific house that fits what you're actually trying to do with your life up here, that's not a video conversation, that's a phone call or an email. So if any part of what you're hearing today has you thinking about the reserve or Frisco in general, don't sit on it. Just reach out. Ask me the question that you're actually wondering about. That's honestly why I'm here, what I love doing, and I love having those conversations with people. So let's talk about what doesn't get mentioned enough. Give me a call. Let's have a conversation. So here's the first trade-off, and it's usually the first thing that surprises buyers who assumed every Frisco neighborhood is walkable to town. Frisco Main Street, it's one of the best small mountain town strips in the whole county. Coffee shops, restaurants, the marina right there, the whole walkable core is a huge part of why people fall in love with this town in the first place. I know that's what did it for me. From the reserve, you're looking at more like a 20 to 25-minute walk to get to Main Street. And it's not horrible, but compare that to some other parts of Frisco where you're talking about 10 minutes or less. It's kind of a real difference. In the summer, honestly, it's not a big deal. It's a nice walk, easy bike ride, and the weather's usually on your side. But in the winter, there's very few sidewalks and the roads, they can get icy. That walk stops sounding quite so appealing. Most people in the reserve are driving to Main Street in the winter months, not walking. So if your whole vision of Frisco involves walking to dinner most nights of the year, ditching the car completely, this might not be the neighborhood that gives you that in every season. I always tell buyers, be honest with yourself about how much walkability matters to your day-to-day life. Because the reserve sits close enough to I-70 to give you that easy access that we talked about, some of the homes, especially the ones on the edge of the neighborhood, actually back right up to the freeway, I-70. It's not every single property. It varies a lot depending on exactly where the lot sits, the tree buffer, which direction the house faces, but it is something that I bring up with every single buyer looking in this neighborhood because I'd rather you hear it from me now than notice it after you've closed. If road noise is a deal breaker for you, we need to really be specific about which lots actually back up to the freeway and which ones don't, because it's not uniform across the whole neighborhood. Some properties, you barely notice it, like not at all. Others, especially at night when everything else is quiet, you'll hear it. This is exactly the kind of thing I walk clients through in person because honestly, a listing photo is never going to tell you what a place sounds like at 10 o'clock at night or show you how close that back fence line actually sits to the freeway. All right, here's the one that honestly frustrates buyers the most, and it's just a math problem. People buy in the reserve and they don't leave. I mean that pretty literally. This is one of those neighborhoods where once someone lands here, they tend to stay for years, sometimes even decades, which is a great sign about how much people love living here. But it's a pretty rough deal if you're the one trying to buy in. Listings in the reserve are just more limited, and when they do come up, especially anything that's current and updated or on a great lot, they tend to move fast. So if the reserve is a neighborhood you've got your heart set on, waiting around and refreshing the listings every couple of weeks, it's not a real strategy. And here's the last one, and it's something that trips people up because it's easy to miss when you're just scrolling listing photos. The reserve wasn't built all at once. It's developed out over a longer stretch of time, which means you're going to find homes that have been beautifully renovated, sitting a few doors down from places that haven't been touched since they were built. That's actually part of the character of the neighborhood. It's not some cookie cutter development where every home looks identical, but it also means you can't assume that because a house is in the reserve, it's automatically updated or automatically move-in ready. I have walked into homes here that are stunning, fully renovated, and have walked into homes on the exact same street that need a full kitchen and bath remodel, updated systems, the whole thing. And the price between the two homes can be significant, even though the lot, location, and neighborhood are identical. So when you're looking at the reserve, you really do need to go property by property, not just neighborhood by neighborhood. This is one of those spots where working with someone who's actually been inside these homes, it matters because online the photos don't always tell you the age of the roof or when the boiler was last replaced. And honestly, this whole conversation, weighing the walkability against the privacy, the noise against the location, the inventory problem against how much people really love it once they're in it, this is exactly the kind of thing that I walk through with buyers one-on-one, because what matters to you might be totally different than what mattered to the last person I helped find a place here. Now, if you're still trying to figure out whether Frisco is even the right town for you, or if somewhere like Dillon might be a better fit, you need to watch my next video where I compare Frisco and Dillon side by side, because what makes the reserve special is actually true of Frisco as a whole. And that video will break down exactly how those two towns stack up. So go watch that one next. I'll see you there.